Part 2 of Some New Thoughts. Now, there is one thing that you really kind of have to understand is the chain of command within the realm of God. And everything that's there. So really the only way that it can be explained so you kind of understand the chain of command is this way. God is our grandfather. The Holy Spirit is grandmother. Okay, because they are the creators of everything. Now, it gets kind of interesting because where we live within a solar system of one of the Creator's sons, that you see, Michael is our father, and the Spirit of Truth is the Mother Spirit, which is our mom. Now, you say, well, where does Jesus come in? Well, Jesus was born of this earth, and he was bestowed as the earthly teacher to tell everybody about who God was and salvation to get back to heaven, and our souls will be immortal. But until this time, that nobody knew that salvation was always there, but not told. So it was kind of interesting when Jesus brought that to light, that it always had been there, but we had been lied to for so many generations that we had no idea what it was or even anything about it. So Jesus was bestowed our earthly teacher. Now, the word bestowal is really kind of interesting because bestowal means that you're given a job to do and the power to do it. So, and this was what, when Jesus got baptized, he received the power, he received the bestowal, he received the actual power of healing to do the job that he didn't have to do it. He was given the job if he wanted to do it. That was his bestowal. So he decided to do the job, which was to take on as earthly teacher to teach us about the real ways of God and how to get back to heaven. So it's really kind of interesting when they talk about the Trinity. Well, it's not a Trinity. It's 5 different things. Even though there is the Father, the Mother, and the Son, it's still, you're only talking about this solar system. You're not talking about the place where God lives in paradise. First source and center, they call it, of paradise. See, this is where our grandfather and grandmother live. So if you want to talk about just the solar system, then the Trinity would work, where Michael is our father, and the Spirit of Truth is our mom, and Jesus was the son, the bestowed son of Michael. See, so Michael is one of the Creator's sons. I know this is kind of interesting and kind of a shock because the Lucifer rebellion, and Satan was his general, and the deception went on for 235,000 years. And the human race has been here on the planet Earth for 500,000. So it gets really interesting when you understand that why God let it go on for so long is the time frame. Now, you really kind of have to understand one major thing is the time delay. Now, where God is within 1 day's time, as you go further out into the galaxies and solar systems, time goes by slower. So that means that 1,000 years on here on Earth could be 300 days where Michael lives. And where God is, it could be 3 days. So even though the eradication of Satan and Lucifer, you see, they went through a different time zone, and they could get all this stuff done within that time because they had time. Even though it was a week's time, by the time everything was going on and the putting Lucifer and Satan in jail was only 7 days in heaven, but on earth it was 235,000 years. So the time delay makes a big difference. And when you're saying, well, why didn't God take care of the rebellion soon? Well, he did, in his time zone, not ours. So it was really kind of interesting when you find out that, this is why Jesus said 3 days, because where Michael's at, it's 3 days. So, round trip, it's 3 days. So, there is a lot of things that went on that was taken care of, but it was within their time zone, not ours. So that was what gets really interesting. And you see, where Michael was one of the Creator's sons, he was still in charge of the solar system. So he gave Jesus the bestowed, which means he gave them the job to be the earthly teacher. So this is really kind of interesting when you get to the concept of Jesus was not holy or divine. His body was not holy or divine because he was born of Joseph and Mary, and Joseph and Mary was his real mother and father. Even though it was said that he was a virgin birth, well, that was Jewish tradition back then, to where it states that a woman is considered a virgin until she gives birth to her first child, and it doesn't matter if she's been married and sleeping with her husband for 10 years. She is still considered a virgin, because this way, if she ever gets divorced, she can remarry as long as she don't have any children, and she would still be considered a virgin, so she could remarry. Now, once she has her first child, she's not a virgin anymore and cannot be remarried. So this was pretty much what it was back then with Jewish tradition. Now, there is so much Jewish tradition within the New Testament and the Old Testament because the disciples had to teach something that they understood so they could get across what they were trying to get across within the Jewish tradition. So there's a lot of things that had nothing to do with Jesus' teachings, but the disciples used it so they can get across what they were trying to get across within the Jewish tradition. And there was also one other thing that was really kind of interesting as Jesus was teaching was he could speak 3 languages, which was Arabic, Greek, and Hebrew. So, he even took some jobs as an interpreter because he could talk and speak and write in all 3 languages. Now, the reason for that was his mother spoke Arabic only. His dad spoke Arabic and Greek. And they was given a Old Testament Bible that was in Hebrew. So Jesus learned Hebrew through that book. So later on in life, when his disciples he found spoke different languages. That's why a lot of times in the Bible you'll see that he was only teaching 2 or 3 or 4 at a time because he was teaching them in their language. He did that so he could send them to different towns that spoke their language. So it was really kind of interesting when the 12 disciples spoke 3 different languages. So this is why a lot of times he was sitting and teaching to only 2 or 3 of them at a time, because he spoke to them in their language and taught them in their language. So it was kind of interesting as he was teaching. No matter where he went, he had to find out what the language was, where he was going to, and what they spoke, so he could speak to them in their language. So it was really kind of interesting when you get into Jesus' life and the basic reason how he could teach and why they listened to him was because he went in and healed everyone in the village. Of course, if somebody comes in and heals you from all your sickness, you're going to sit there and listen to him. So this is why that he could go and do all this, and he needed someone to guide the people and to keep the crowds back. So this is the main reason why he got the disciples, was he needed crowd control, which the disciples provided. And also all kinds of other things too. And they knew that they was after him. So he had 2 or 3 at night while he was sleeping to watch and keep guard. That's why he had 12. Because that way a couple of them could take care of his needs, and then also take turns guarding the area at night. Like a lot of the Indians used to do. They used to put out guards, and or they call them scouts. So this way, if anybody was going to hurt anybody on the way, they can get ready to defend themselves. So, and this is a lot of reasons Jesus had the disciples. And I don't think a lot of people that even read the New Testament didn't understand that, because it wasn't told. It was just basic information that they wrote down. And a lot of the stuff was about Jesus, not about what he taught. So you really have to understand that. And you probably won't even watch this all the way through to this point because of all the stuff that I said. And if you did, watch the next one. Bye.